Alright, now we're going to create a histogram. We're going to try to find out where the mode is. We're going to go into histogram. We're going to do it again for wages. Oh, and by the way, I still have my age 60 to 65 and employment status employed. So again, I said you could do binning automatic. It might be fine. And it looks like it doesn't hurt too bad. It bins every 20K. We're seeing the mode appear to be between 0 and 20K. I'm going to go to the bin width, just take a better look at it, and I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to take it down to 10,000. So my size is going to be 10,000, and I'm going to overshoot. Remember, you always want to overshoot the max. I'm going to go to 700,000, and I can leave it on counts. I don't really need density for this because I'm not doing any comparisons. So now you can see, like, you kind of got the sense that there was a lot between 0 and 19, but now I go 0 to 10,000, and that's even higher. So what we're seeing in the 60 to 65 age group, there appears to be a lot of people that are not working a whole lot. I mean, we might need to look at this further. Maybe they're employed, but they're working very few hours. So looking at hours worked would be kind of a next kind of step in this. We haven't done anything to the hours worked. Like, so this data is all the people who are employed. We're not really seeing, are they working full-time or part-time or whatever. And this also, just so you know, like when it says wages 12 months, this is like how much wages have you earned in the last 12 months. So it's somewhat of a little bit of a hard calculation. Some people might have, quit work and went back to work, and even though they're employed, they just started working, so they haven't shown a lot of wages for the last 12 months. It's kind of a tricky little variable. I'm going to go to 5,000, and I'm wondering, is it still going to be starting at 0, the largest bin. And we can see even when I go to 5,000, this is going to very low. So what I'm guessing is there's a lot of zeros in the data. I don't know if it'll let me go to 1,000. We can see. You can see even when I go to 1,000, there's a lot of zeros. So a lot of people are reporting zeros, which isn't, it's not I mean, it's surprising at first. You're like, well, how could they be employed and making no money? But based on how the ACS runs their data and how they ask this question, I could see that this could happen. So they just have probably not been working that long this year, or they just got back to being at work. Maybe they had retired, went back to work. Who knows? So now, which one is the best one that we got here? This was the default one. This was our second one where we did it at 10,000. This is one where we did it at 5,000. This one we did it at 1,000. This one's really, like, you can't even really tell what's going on here because it's so small. I'd say the same thing's sort of true for 5,000. There's just a lot of bumps here. We don't really... It's difficult to make sense of this one. Here's one at... These are 10,000. Okay, so this was 5,000. This one was 1,000. This is 10,000. I think I kind of probably like the 10,000 one a touch over the one that's at 20,000. Just because we do see, like, there's a drop, big peak, then drop, and then it starts to rise up, and we see kind of like this first peak, 30,000. That sort of seems maybe like the natural peak. If we ignored all the people that are making $0, we would see our first peak here. Actually, if we started, you could start at like $1 and see what happens. This is a little bit of a trick. I haven't tried it yet. Let me see. If I start at $1, I lose that big peak. This is 1 to 10,000. So let me compare these. Let's look at this. So this is 1 to 10,000. This is also 1 to 10,000, but I removed all the zeros. So you got to be very careful. If you're going to do this sort of a graph, you got to tell your audience, I filtered for people who at least reported $1 made in the last 12 months, which doesn't seem unreasonable. And when we do that, we get a little bit better feeling. We can kind of see, in general, these 60 to 65-year-olds are not reporting a whole lot of money. It appears that sort of the center of the distribution, or maybe the mode of the distribution when we remove the zeros, is around 30,000, 30 to 40. And then comes down but comes back up. But then we definitely see it goes down quite drastically after this 90. And we see little bumps here and there. This could be kind of rounding errors. We're seeing these little bumps, but it is definitely decreasing, and we're getting very right skewed data here. So we have our center around 30. It drops pretty fast down, and then it's right skewed, and then we still do see a tremendous 40 people that are reporting in excess of our last digit here, which was like around 400,000. So this is the average of all the people that are reporting more than the last reported digit. Pretty interesting. I think this is a pretty interesting distribution. These 60 to 65-year-olds typically, in general, are making less than 100,000, it looks like. If we go back, and I guess one of the things that's kind of interesting to look at, I need to keep the zeros in here because when I calculated the summary statistics, so this is one thing that we got to be careful of. The summary statistics included the zeros. So we could see quite a bit of difference if we remove this. That mean would even go up even higher. Maybe the median would move a little bit as well. We have to be careful because there's over 200 people reporting the zeros, it looked like. So that's, sizable chunk, 200 out of 16, 2 out of 16, that's 1 out of 8. That's like over 10% of the sample is reporting zero earnings. This is a tricky variable. I was just kind of looking at this. When were the median and the first quartile and the third quartile? So if you're getting a third quartile at 12.5, so 12.5 is like right about here. So this is 75% of my sample is reporting less than 125,000. And if you go here to 70,000, this is like the halfway line right here. It's not the same when you remove the zeros from the sample, though. It'd be interesting. I'd like to see how this changes. Let's take a quick look. All I got to do is move the wages off of 1. It's going to be tricky. I think this might be one of the times when you do this and type in a 1. I seldom use that feature. Create filtered data set. I'm going to recreate this one right here now. Actually, what I want to do is I want to do summary statistics. Tag number summary. Add in the mean, variable, wages, generate. Now the min was 80. I made $80 in the last 12 months. And then I removed the histogram. So let's do the histogram again. Wages, bin width, 0, 10,000. See, I might not need the 10,000 now, actually, now. I could probably get by with something a little different, but so I don't really need it. I don't know if it's going to... I did it before because I really wanted to see where that peak was on the left-hand side, but you can see it's not... I don't think I gain anything with the 10,000 here. The 20,000 looks just as good. I see this actually, I get to see kind of like the decay of this growth. I get to see this thing fall kind of at a better rate than I do here because I get a lot of these little bumps that are probably rounding little bumps. How people round their earnings. So this is a good graph. I think this is a really good graph that probably represents it the best, but you have to be very careful to explain that you're excluding... Well, how many does it look like? 1662 to 14. So you're excluding like 115 people that reported zero earnings. But that's okay as long as you say what you're doing. I think this is still a very good graph. Now the question was, I was saying, how much did summary statistics change? First quartile moved to the right, median moved to the right, the mean moved to the right. So all the numbers had kind of a consistent movement to the right when we got rid of the zeros. Interesting. Okay, well that's the histogram. So two different answers. I think if you allowed these zeros to be the focal point, you could call that the mode. And it is the mode. It truly is the mode of the data. It is the most commonly reported data. But then it's like, but that's not really wages, That would be like total earnings. It's kind of an interesting question to look at. I'm not exactly sure because wages are for when we're employed, so it's tricky. This is a tricky analysis if you're really trying to understand what are the wages of people that are 60 to 65 years old? You have kind of a interesting question here. And it might be the fact that we're right at 65. If maybe we change this filter to like 64, which is like 1 year before like most people retire at 65, we might see a very different story. I mean, the zeros might disappear on their own. I don't know. Okay, well, I don't want to go too far over on this. I just kind of, this is, to me, it's like we're always trying to figure things out. See, there's not as high of a peak at the zeros. This is when I've now went 60 to 64. So I think some of these, a lot of these could be 65-year-olds that are reporting the zero earnings, because I'm not seeing that same peak here. Anyway, okay, well, that's a lot to me. Numerical variables are tricky, especially when you're dealing with like kind of an endpoint age of earnings. Things can be tricky. Hope you learned something from this.